Hey, Owen, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. How you doing today, man?
Doing great, James. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Dude, I'm really excited to talk to you. I think you have a lot of interesting things going on. And I think you just, it sounds like you have your hands in multiple different pots here. And I think we're going to be able to extract a lot of value from everything you're doing right now. So, just for simple introductions, we'll get into all of that good stuff. But just for simple introductions, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, kind of the story of Owen?
Yeah, absolutely. So, New Jersey kid. Quickly, we're 45 minutes outside of Manhattan, so big city mentality. But living in the suburbs is how I kind of say it. Uh, spent the last 6 years in college basketball, believe it or not. So I come from a championship high performance background, um, all under Danny Hurley, who, if you're familiar with college basketball, the Hurley family
Absolutely.
is a dynasty. Um, was at University of Rhode Island for 4 years, and then went to University of Connecticut for 2 years. Got my master's in finance risk before age of 23. Um, struggled in high school academically. Was a very social guy. Played sports, and then I got to college, and I had this epiphany that like I felt like my back was against the wall, and um, I was sold the mentality that these three digits, the GPA, means a lot to your success. So I just went really really intense in school, and I was a part of the basketball team for 4 years. Two championships during that, my junior and senior year. Joined clubs and so forth, and then got the master's degree. And essentially through that whole process, and based off my childhood of struggling in school, I've pretty much known that the formal education system is just flawed, and there's so many areas that need improvement. So that's taken me into my work today. I built a business and a brand called Unleash the Knowledge for 2 years now that literally simply promotes books and personal development and learning. Also have a business side of that where I work with authors to get their books out and get more exposure and build an authority brand. And then my work recently, pretty much this whole year, 2021, has been with this new startup called Gura that is revolutionizing education as well. So,
So I think that's awesome, man. I think that's a really interesting story. The fact that you come from like a competitive sports background, I think is awesome. I do as well, and that served me really well in sales and just business in general. But it sounds like you kind of have some sort of purpose from like the of learning. Like you have a core belief of learning. Where does that come from, man? Like I'm hearing some things like, hey, I believe the educational system's flawed. I agree. Struggled with curriculum and grades growing up. Same here. I'm just trying to dig a little bit deeper here. Did Unleash the Knowledge and all of that come from like part of your background of just like learning, or kind of give me some more insight into that?
yeah, definitely. So, where it probably began subconsciously without me even knowing it is two things. My dad always pushed this main message that was, literally the one liner that I always heard from him was to find a passion in learning. And I never wanted to accept that. So that's just the first layer of it. Second layer is my brother, who's older than me, who is extremely smart. He's at Stanford right now getting his PhD. So, in engineering, too, of all places. So, I was having that from my dad. I was having my brother excel in school, and I'm over here struggling to get C's. And I'm
Sure.
like, what's going on here? So coast through high school, again, really, really valued the group setting, the socializing and so forth. I get to college, and I got the basketball saved me. Honestly, that was a big, big aspect to what I think my success is today, which is nothing crazy. We're just getting rolling, but watching Coach Hurley carry himself on a day to day basis and learning his mentality and how he approached his work and what podcasts he listened to, what books he was reading, what was on his desk. I would take pictures of the books. I'd go buy them myself. I'd go read them. He'd ask me to print out an article. I'd print out two copies. I'd read one and give him one. So I was just this massive, massive sponge during those 4 years. And that's really what molded this desire to just like reach my, however you want to call it, your best self, as everyone likes to say today. Or Honestly, just like, I mean, along that journey, I've fallen into, not in a bad way, but like the stoic belief and understanding that you really have one life. And I also have I'm strong in my faith too, as strong as I'd like to say I am on a day-to-day basis. So I'm definitely cognizant that you get this one shot right now. And like, there's many paths you could take. I could be that high school Owen, which is a different person than I am today, or I can like really try to see what the heck I could do here. So, basketball started, dad and brother got it going. Basketball really ignited it. Coach Hurley was a massive influence. And now today I'm just studying the most successful people, trying to get myself around extremely successful people, whether they're a couple steps ahead of me or they're my age, which has been one of my biggest struggles in my whole life so far has been finding people my age who kind of get how I think. A lot of people don't, which is fine. There's different people in the world, but I've just been on this journey to find other folks. Um, but yeah, that's been the basis of it, and now it's night and day from today to how life was 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Sure. It just sounds like your journey was really kind of rooted from a deeper purpose. And I love that find a passion in learning. I think what your dad said is really meaningful. And, people listening to this that might be in sales, business, any type of entrepreneurial journey, I think learning has to be a core belief. A matter of fact, in my day-to-day company, Day Porter, it is a core belief amongst our team. It's like one of the very first things we tell new hires, like core belief has to be learning. And then our vice president always says, now we have to make sure they're actually learning. So I really like this. I might go down a little bit of a different path here because I think you just touched on a few things that I want to dive more into. One, I'm just curious. This was the first thought that came to mind when you were talking about Coach Hurley and like what you saw on his desk, what type of books. I'm just curious from such a top performer and a coach like that. What type of habits did you pick up from someone like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the biggest probably success habits is that number one success habit that I've obtained, and I'm sure you'll agree with, is consistency, is doing the work every single day. I mean, the basketball life is we're practicing on Christmas, we're practicing on Thanksgiving, we're playing games on Thanksgiving. I mean, even when you're at home with your family, all cozied up on Christmas Day, you're watching 4 or 5 NBA games. And, you know, I'm sure you understand it, but maybe listeners that are not, don't have that experience maybe in sports or whatever it may look like. That's just, oh, cool. We're going to go over grandma's house and watch basketball. But for me, it's a deeper thing than that too, because there's vendors there too. There's people making $12 an hour, $10 an hour that are working those games that are not with their families. Like that's kind of how I think now today when I see things like that. But yeah, consistency is the number one piece, doing the work every single day. Um, you know, Delayed gratification is a
Mm,
big kind of core mindset aspect as well, where coach's story is probably the most incredible because you can argue that he was born into, so to speak, the layup of being a successful coach. His dad is a Hall of Famer. In high school, his brother drafted first round, played at Duke and so forth. But Coach Hurley, first gig out of college was kind of like an intern under his dad in high school. And then he ended up at Rutgers, which is great, which was, D1 level. He was an assistant coach. Things kind of went haywire there with the head coach that we won't really need to get into. But then that dropped him down to high school again, where he spent 9 years there. And driving, like he always jokes, he was driving the cheese bus, driving the school bus to games and so forth. And, then he's rose up the D1 levels and now he's at UConn, which is incredible. So, um, from someone who's got no connections to someone who has all the connections, they might still be on the same path. So just kind of, having that
amen.
love for the purpose, love for the drive, seeing that end goal and, visualizing it or working towards it on a day-to-day basis, wherever you are, is I think a big key too. But I guess I'll just wrap up here on that question is I mean, back to the learning. You got to be a continuous learner. I mean, for the amount of books I've read, which is just obscene to think about again, because I still pinch myself knowing who I was in high school and how my priorities were just all out of whack. Um,
Sure.
I'm still growing on a day-to-day basis, but I've probably read more books than, a human would read in their lifetime by my age today. So, but it's funny how the more you read, the more you learn, the more there is to learn. So, I mean, in the basketball world, and in the business world, there's coaches, there's masterminds, there's courses, there's events and so forth. Same with basketball. Like people are just constantly working on their craft. And, that's a big habit to love and pursue.
I love that. We gotta stop being so casual with our ability to turn on our brain. And what I mean by that is, man, I like started this personal development growth phase of my life because I was sick of being fucking miserable at a job when I knew that there was so much more for me. So I remember like sitting in this cubicle, podcasts and books, and just being hungry, right? And then one thing led to another, action followed. You break through from that. Then I started a business, sold a business, saw some success. I got complacent. What happened when I got complacent? I got unhappy. What happened then? Started my growth journey again, kind of going back down to the high school ranks, maybe, like getting punched in the teeth, man. So I think that's awesome. I want to talk to you about the books that you've read. You said that you've read probably more books than a typical human has in a lifetime. I find that interesting. One, how many books is that? And two, have you always had a love for reading, or just kind of walk me down that journey? Like, I mean, dude, reading is a commitment. You have to commit to reading stuff. So, yeah, how many books is that? And maybe give a shout out to a few that have like totally just transformed you.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously you get this question a lot and I love it. It's funny because you would think I've read, more than maybe the number I'll say, but we're sitting at probably like, anywhere from under 300 for sure, probably like 200 or so books, which is like just an
A
obscene amount.
lot.
And when I say that, that's not all cover to cover too, because I've recently changed my reading style because I've been more cognizant as I started this conversation with our time and how there's time, value, money, and there's also the ticking time bomb of when this show's over. So now I read the table of contents with far more intention than I've ever done before, and then I go directly to the source of what I want to learn. But yeah, probably like 200 books. And most of those are physical books too. That's kind of the crazy part. Like I actually I hate's a strong word. I dislike strongly audiobooks, to be completely honest, mainly because so partially why school was difficult for me is I was diagnosed ADD, ADHD as a young kid, got put on the whole deal, the Concerta drugs and so forth. Did well. It actually worked, but then I stopped eating and my mom took me off of it because I was skin and bones. And then, that was like sixth grade, seventh grade. But to that point, like I'm a big note taker. So when I read the books, physical books, I have to take active notes, bracket off sentences, arrows, writing the margins and so forth. Can't do that with audiobooks. That's why I mainly don't like them. Um, it also depends on the audiobook you're reading. Like a biography is okay, but if it's like a tactical sales book, can't do it. You got to be, writing down notes unless you have a massive memory, which I don't. Um, so yeah, tons of books have been read. Again, no, I didn't have a love for reading like growing up. I couldn't. I mean, I'm telling you, James, like this is the dead honest truth. I would come home, I would go to school, I would play a sport. Lacrosse was one of my main games, believe it or not, being my basketball career. Lacrosse was one of my main games in high school. I get home at like 6. I would literally procrastinate to shower. I would sit for a little bit and then I would literally watch YouTube subtitle videos of like Mac Miller songs and just learn like all of them. And I thankfully actually met Mac Miller.
Oh, cool, man.
R.I.P.
Yeah,
On
no doubt.
Yeah, on a funny story. I mean, there's a picture of it, but in a TSA line going to a basketball game, and but yeah, I was not driven. I was not doing any. I was fueled by drinking and girls and that type of stuff. I was not fueled by anything like that. So that's kind of caps that off. But some books I'll share that I loved. So one of the books that I really, really love because it validated what I was already doing, and I think this will be applicable to any listener here. But and I'm fortunate also that I've gone close with the author too. It's called The Third Door by Alex Banayan, and the book essentially is, um, it talks about just this kid who, you know, I don't even know how he did this to this day, but he hacked The Price is Right. He won the whole thing. He sold all of his winnings to fuel this journey of finding out, of interviewing some of the greatest people in the world, like Bill Gates, Lady Gaga, Pitbull, um, the whole deal, and finding out how they got their start. And that's actually kind of where I bring some light to my own podcast. Not really a plug for mine. It's not that great.
Oh, plug it, man.
Yeah, but I'm slowing it down anyway. But pretty much the premise of it is, we hear about the success stories when they're 40 and 50, but like, what the heck were they doing at 18? Like, what were they doing at 25? What were they doing at 30 that we could be doing right now? I mean, I don't know the full demographic of ages of your listeners, but I'm sure there's 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, even 40-year-olds, to know that. So that book is big with that. And I was emailing, I got on a phone as an 18-year-old with the CMO of the Red Sox. I was talking to the VP of PR with the Knicks when I was 18 as well, I guess. Like right when I got to college, I was like, we're going. Like, I got to get these internships. I got to figure it out. Nothing came out of fruition for them, but they're names that people know. So I have brought them up. It's
Sure.
been helpful. So that's one major book. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight is it?
Love Shoe Dog. I love Shoe Dog, man.
So that book, I mean, that's like the true, what people don't see kind of like book. I mean, his poor, I don't want to give it away, but at the end of the book, he has a death in his family that hits him hard. And he wasn't able to be around, well, it was his son. I'll just say it. Not that he's going to come after me, but it just shows that you could spend your whole life, well, let's just say this. It explains the life, the story of success and trade-offs. There's always going to be a trade-off. There's always opportunity cost, which is something I kind of harp on a lot. And I kind of want to push more messages out there about that concept of like chasing opportunities, but also the cost of not doing certain things and how that relationship happens. So that book's big. And then, a few more I'll just rattle off. Chop Wood, Carry Water by Joshua Metcalf. Read that in basketball. That's a short book.
I've heard good stuff about that, man.
Yeah, Joshua's been great. It's been incredible because I know all these authors now. Like, I'm reading these books before, and now that I've built my brand and so forth, and I've connected with them, and now I'm like, I have their cell phone numbers, which is hysterical that I could reach out to them. But Joshua's funny. He actually dislikes that book. That's one of his that's like his book that he wished didn't get all the fame that it has. He's got other books that I guess he thinks is better, but that's a great book. The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma is another great book. And then A Rich Dad Poor Dad was big for me too. I mean, I know that the book's thrown around left and right, but it's a good book that just explains the attitudes and the mentalities behind an employee and an entrepreneur or an investor or the whole deal. So
yeah, no, I agree, man. It's like the economics of kind of like business and entrepreneurship and stuff like you need to know. And Rich Dad Poor Dad's a really good book for someone like just starting out that like is like really curious for growth, and that's important. Man, I think that's so awesome. A few questions for you, man, and I don't even know if I want to get into the tacticalness of sales and all that here, because I think if you're not learning, you're falling behind, and I believe the best leaders are learners. And when we're talking sales, man, like, we can never be too comfortable and too good not to learn new things. And what goes into learning, it's turning on your brain, reading these types of books. And so I think it's awesome that you kind of come with this pedigree of learning. I learned here probably within the last 2 years, and I'm 32, how important it is to know how you learn. And what I mean by that is, like, you hear the Gary V's hustle till you die type mentality, the Tim Grovers, who I like all these guys, by the way, but it's fucking work, and it's no sacrifice. I'm a sprinter, not a marathon runner. I had to learn that about myself. And then, so I was like burning out because the message in entrepreneurship was marathon, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. And just to find out I'm a sprinter. I'm not a marathon runner. And then I had to learn that like when I read, I have to read in sprints. I can't read like marathon wise, and I have to take notes. And I rarely finish a book cover to cover. But out of those books you just mentioned, I've actually read half of them. I say read, but I've dove in. I've learned something from half of them.
Right.
So, how important is it to know how you learn?
Yeah, it's a big question. I love that. Because that takes me back to formal ed. Like I, you know, struggled at math. It just the way, like, let's say this. I am which might have pivoted, to be honest, but I was never a conceptual learner. I'm always, even in sports, actually, I really love this question because I used to wrestle, which was a great experience, but it did not go too well for me. This is like seventh and eighth grade. And I did it because my brother was a big wrestler, and we, had our fair share of altercations in the home. But it's all love always. Um, I needed to do the work. I needed to do the action. I needed, like, I can now I'm playing golf, so that's my new sport now. I can watch all the YouTube videos. It's not going to work. It might get a little thing moving, but I need to like have a coach or go to the range and actually do the work and feel it, and then know. And basketball too, like you got to have touch, like on your shots. Like you can't watch, like, it's so funny because, like, I'm sorry if I'm bouncing around a bit, but like Steph Curry's master class, like you're not learning basketball watching that. Like, please, come on. I mean, Steph Curry, he probably got paid $1 million for that. Fantastic, good gig for him. He built up the brand. He's a great player, great athlete. Shout out to the A10 as well, which was our conference at Rhode Island. He played at Davidson. But you can't do that. Like, you got to be on the court. You got to
Yeah.
feel the ball. You got to go and, like, you got to do the work. So yeah, I think that's a massive, massive thing that people need to learn. How do you learn? And for me, I know that I am, I think it's called, like, is it called kinetic learner?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's visual, there's auditorial, and then there's kinetic. So I'm a kinetic learner. Like, I need to touch the thing. I need to build the thing. I need to,
Sure.
work. So yeah, that's how I work. In your concept of sprint and marathon. I mean, I'm happy to elaborate on that too, or
Yeah,
learn
go
more
for it.
about. Or I guess the question was kind of what you mean by that. But for me, well, one thing, I could work all day. That's a problem. Work from home has been, it's been different for me since I left basketball. I mean, I was coming from basketball. We were already working all day from wake up to going to bed. So that's kind of like in my nature. But in terms of like tasks and so forth, I have a racy mind and I like to bite off more than I could chew, that I think I shared with you on our first call. Like, I like to start a lot of things. Not that I have a problem with finishing, but I just want to see, let's just say this, like, there's this social media term omnipresence, to have a presence in all platforms and so forth. I like really hone in on that. I have like a big belief in that. But when you do that, you got to be strategic about it, and you might have to delegate, you might have to outsource and so forth. So I'm learning that as we go, which is good. I mean, it's moving, and I'm not setting myself back in any way. But um, I I mean, if I had to consider sprint or marathon, I would say I'm probably a marathon guy because I could read all day. I can sit down, and I don't know really how to explain it. Well, I'll say this: it's a deeper desire. It's a purpose thing. It has to be, because I'm telling you, I couldn't even sit through like a 10-minute lecture in high school or middle school. Like, I'm telling you, I was bad. Like, I reading comprehension was so bad for me that I would read the story and completely forget everything
Sure.
that I just read. And
Sure.
then I was taught, read the questions first so you can know what to pick and choose. And then I was like, wow, why wasn't that the first thing I was taught? Why did I have
Yeah.
to go through all this struggle? I'm like, instead of even reading the thing, I'm just going to go find the buzzwords, find the keywords, and try to
Yeah, no
figure out
doubt.
the answer. But today I could read for hours, man, and I love it. And it's and I guess it's just because I know that there's a tangible return. I can learn a tactic, a sales tactic, or a business piece of advice, and I could put it into action right away, which I love. Or I could read a biography, or a memoir. I just got Dan Blazarian's book yesterday, which is going to be
Nice.
a fun read. Not that I look up to the guy whatsoever, but he's definitely created quite the life for himself.
Sure.
Like now that aspect, I can dive into somebody's life and potentially, change up my life to reflect
100
theirs or something like that.
100%. I would almost say like knowing how your brain works and knowing your learning patterns is a competitive advantage. When I say I'm a sprinter, like I can give you a committed 4 hours, but then I need to break before
Okay.
I need to break and like recharge and whatever. But I'm also, you have to know your personality type. I'm a rebel personality. My biggest core belief in life before my family is freedom. So because I'm a rebel personality, so
I'm
it's
with you on
like,
that.
yeah, so like you have to know like how you work, and it took me 30 years to figure it out, and I'm figuring it out today. Task lists and all of that, organization isn't my thing. I pay an executive assistant to keep me accountable and to keep me on track, and it's because I'm deficient in that. You have to double down on your strengths versus double down on your weaknesses, in my opinion. So like anyone listening now, whether you're in the sales game, you're just in the entrepreneurial game, these are takeaways that can apply to really any field, industry, or area of your life. Um,
Yeah, I
and
like that. I want to add 2 seconds to that because I
go
think I'm
for
an
it.
interesting case study. I mean, like, I'm sure you got guys that have been successful in business for 20 plus years or 10 plus years, and then you probably got guys just getting started. So, you could say I've lived 2 lives so far. I had my basketball career. I have tons to talk about that. I have 2 rings to show for it in a framed jersey that I'm looking at right now. But I'm also now in this business world, this startup world, and it's freaking nuts. It's a different type of life. Like I have transferable mentality skills, but I didn't learn sales and basketball. I mean, there was one point I want to mention on that we could get to a little bit later. And when you said we won't talk about tactics, but I wanted to highlight one piece.
Sure.
But um, the point I wanted to make was um, that, well, I guess I'll just share that one piece is like, you can, it's all story based, like when I've gone into an interview, I don't ever talk about the job. I've always talked about basketball or the guy I spoke to on the phone who's the CMO or something like this. So like in sales, like when I talk to people and I'm selling them or even we're networking, it's always like, where's the relatable piece? Where's the story that we can kind of latch onto, rather than actually talking about the true idea behind it. But yeah, I just want to mention that. I think I had another point, but I think it slipped my mind.
No, it's all good. I think that's well said. I mean, the best salesmen are the best storytellers in many ways, and stories are relatable, and we always have to find some common ground, especially if you're cold prospecting, right? Like that initial conversation with a prospect, you have to find common ground, and stories are a very comfortable and like inviting way to do that. So I totally agree, man. I'm going to ask you one like kind of last business question. Then I have a fun thing I do at the end of each show. In terms of like sales questions here, man. Um, you had mentioned like you might have some creative way to find prospects when it comes to your sales process. I'm just curious what are some creative ways that you've prospected?
Yeah. So, one thing that I learned or that I pursued probably 5 months ago or so. I don't know. I mean, it's creative, but it's also like a growth hack strategy. So a lot of my clients, they wrote a book, obviously. So this is for Unleash the Knowledge. So I had someone build out a code for me that scraped all of Amazon's new releases and dumped it into an Excel spreadsheet. And that, I mean, I know there's automation tools for LinkedIn and clean leads and this and that. Like, I mean, people, this is not a new topic to do this. But to be honest, this did not come to me. It took me like 9 months to think of this for whatever reason. And I'm like, where, because you want to ask, where are your clients hanging out?
Sure.
And obviously their mine are specific, especially on Amazon. They're trying to get their books out. So that's one piece that has helped me. But another piece is I just put on a presentation actually a few weeks ago in Boston about social media for insurance agents, it was an opportunity that presented itself. I don't work with insurance agents. I don't really want to. It just kind of happened, and it was a good, professional development thing for me. But one thing I said was, okay, so there's these Facebook groups, and you could think inside, or these Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups that you could think inside the box. So say you're an insurance person and there's gardeners of New Jersey, people that like to garden that live in New Jersey. Sure, they need insurance. Everyone needs insurance. So that's a pretty, wide open field, a big umbrella. But then I thought, what's outside the box thinking? Skydivers of New Jersey. Like who's hopping into the skydiver chat and like in there to talk about skydiving, but really their true mentality is like, I'm gonna get these people as a corporate client. Like I'm trying to get this whole damn like business under my insurance policy. And even that, maybe people are like, oh, that's a dead giveaway because obviously there's a lot of insurance liability in skydiving. But it's that mindset to like think like, okay, like what are weird groups that people are
Sure.
resonating with, or what's the commonality that they enjoy that you're that you can push into. Like I'll share another one for me. Like I didn't even know this was really a thing, but there's book coaches. There's people that
Mhm.
help you write a book. So there's like Scribe and there's bigger ones and companies and there's obviously big publishers, but there's also freelancers, individual people that are, starting out that just have their little like shop and they're helping people write books. So now I have partnerships with these folks that once the book's done, they don't know how to market it. They don't know how to sell the book. They don't know how to make themselves look like an authority on social and on email. So that's where I come in and I'm able to help them perfect that. So those have just been, little creative ways specific to my story. Um, but I think it really just stems from, that outside of the box thinking.
Absolutely. Be creative, be bold. I always I believe in that. But also don't be too good. What I mean by that is like I just actually a guy you actually connected with us with Ricky. Or shout out to Ricky Funk.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to do a steak dinner with you or something. He's a new client of Day Porters. Super excited to work with this guy, young, hungry entrepreneur, and he hits me with this email. And many people know who listen. I'm in the commercial cleaning sales game, and they're like, I get these commercial cleaners that are like too good to join a chamber of commerce. Like, why? Why the fuck are we too good? And Ricky hits me with this email yesterday. He goes, hey, man, you know any organizations, chamber of commerces, and networking events, just based on your experience, I can join to help our sales process? And I loved it. I loved it because he, in that moment, was like, I'm not too good. He's like, I'm going to do what works. And it doesn't matter what works as long as something's working for you. That's at least my mentality. So I think you're right on about that, man. Don't be afraid to get creative, be bold, and think outside of the box. And a little bit of just like actual focused thought when it comes
Yeah.
to your sales strategy goes a long way. Hey,
Well,
man.
I
I'll
love
go for
that.
it.
Yeah, no, I'll just piggyback that for 2 seconds because I think Naval says something how it's like, you want to be paid for your thinking, or you want to, that's where the moneymaker is. And my brother always said that too. And I guess I am finally trying to get it because again, I'm a very practical, actionable guy. Like I build things, I create content, I do these type of stuff. I don't really like, I've grown into the strategy role, which I love. And I think I'm actually pretty good at it just from recent conversations. But my brother's an engineer who also builds, but there's a lot of thinking that comes into place with
Sure.
that. And he's like, listen, I get paid to think. He's like, I have this brain or I think a certain way that will build something that most people won't see. And that's how this thing rolls. Um, and that's a tough concept to kind of wrap your head around at first. But yeah, to your point with Ricky, like you got to be a continuous learner. You got to proximity's power. You got to be. I
Love
mean,
that.
I've met um Lamar Odom and Brad Stevens and like NBA coaches and Kemba Walker and all these like top NBA players, and like I wouldn't have met them if I wasn't obviously a part of a basketball team or in the right room. So there's a big piece to that, whether it's a networking event,
Huge.
Twitter. Honestly, Twitter is how we got connected through
Yeah.
a mutual friend. So
Yeah,
like
exactly.
shout out to I think it was Ty Frankel or
No, it was Nick Abraham.
Nick Abraham. We'll give Nick
Yeah.
the credit. Sorry, Ty.
Yeah.
Um,
They've
but
both
yeah,
been on the show before. It's all love.
yeah. So exactly. You gotta be out there, man. Gotta put the
Yeah.
work in.
I think that's well said, man. Networking so huge, man, and so much value to proximity is power. Stick with winners. You're the average of the 5 people you chill with and spend the most time with. That shit is real, man. Change your environment, change your life. It's just that simple. Hey, dude, I do this fun little game at the end of each show. I got a black box and a white box. I hold them up. People, I got asked the other day, are those cigarettes? I'm like, who the fuck smokes cigarettes anymore? I'm like,
on a podcast live.
Yeah, right. That's how I'm gonna retire. So, anyways, got a black deck of cards and a white deck of cards. The only difference is there's different questions in each. Pick what box you want to choose from. I've never read any one of these questions in them, and whatever you're asked, it'd be awesome for you to answer. So, what box would you like?
Okay, cool. I like that. Let's go with the black box.
Cool. Pick a random card here. If you had someone following you around all the time, what would you have them do? It's a good one.
Wow, that's a great question.
Just think like a robot, man.
Yeah, I mean, I would first off have a sync up with them where the mentality, short answers here is, I would just find out what the tedious tasks are that I do, and the dead weight tasks, and essentially stuff you would delegate to a VA or something, and just give them all that stuff, and just say, hey man, like, we're gonna do some deep work here. We're also gonna do some administrative crappy work. We're gonna make a list and side by side, and you're gonna figure out which ones you could take on, which is we'll agree on that upon that. Of course, it'll be probably pretty clear, and then you're just gonna take all that work and I'm gonna focus on the stuff that will further the business or the message.
I love that, man. Yeah, wait till you have kids, bro. I got 2 kids. They follow me around everywhere. Unfortunately, they just don't do what I want them to do.
Yeah, I'm not ready for that just yet.
Hey, Owen, thanks, man, dude. This was just super knowledgeable what you were able to just give in terms of insight today. Where can people find you? We'll link everything in the show notes and the whole 9 yards. But yeah, dude, just shout yourself out, man. Where can people go follow you?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again, James. This was awesome. I really do appreciate it. So you can go to, the best place to always find what I got going on is it's Unleash the Knowledge on Instagram is honestly where I always send people, because the link in the bio, it's a link tree. You can find it on Twitter as well. Blue background, white and yellow logo of a light bulb.
Check our show notes. We'll have it linked up.
Yeah, perfect. And then I would encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter. That's been a big thing. There I reveal or, spotlight a prolific individual, whoever that may be, entrepreneur, actor, so forth. There are 3 top book recommendations. And then I go into a book bite that I label it is pretty much just taking the big idea from one book that you can go check out. And then the last thing I'll plug too is a new startup that we didn't really highlight too much, which is fine because it's not even live yet, but it's called Gura. Gura, and it's .io is the website, so not .com. And what we built there is essentially it's like that. It's like Cameo meets business advice. So you'll be able to ask.
I love it, man.
Yeah, ask an expert advice, but you won't be disrespecting or taking their time. So you'll get an answer in a few days or so, so they could think it through and really have something formulated for you that could potentially supercharge your business.
I think that's badass, man. And hey, you know what? We'll have you back on, man. I feel like there's just so much to unpack here, and we'll have you back on, and we can talk about Guru and all that. But we'll link it up. Go follow Owen. Hell of a follow. Go out there and learn something, man. That's what I learned today. You motivated me to kind of turn on my brain and go learn. Owen, thank you, brother, and look forward to speaking with you next time.
For sure. Thank you, James. See you, man.